Hey y'all, welcome to Spoken Like a True Goddess podcast. Today is a very special episode because we got a guest. So I got the pleasure to sit down with Porscha Newton. Portia is a love strategist and she's the founder of the Worthy Woman program. And basically, she assists women in healing their self worth wounds so they can attract lasting, healthy love with wealthy men. So yeah, we got all into that in today's episode. She is such an open book and a wealth of knowledge. So stay tuned and enjoy. Hey Portia.
Hi.
How are you?
Good. I'm good.
Thank you. Thank you so much for joining me. So actually I found Portia through a clip on TikTok. And from that clip, I found her Instagram and I really just love her content and what she stands for. Immediately, you could tell that she's a true girl's girl and have a heart for women. And that really intrigued me. So I'm just so excited that I'm actually able to sit down with her today. So, Portia, can you tell us a little bit more about who you are, what you do, your membership program, and kind of what inspired all of this?
Ooh, yes. I love all of those questions. So let's start with the first one. The first one is what inspired this. And I think over the years, I've been in this business for 9 years. I've been studying for 14, and I've always had like this underlying unanswered question as to why do so many amazing women end up in relationships that are not replications or reflections of what they've experienced and who they are, right? I could see the
Mhm,
most amazing. I don't know about you, but I grew up with a mom who was a single mom, and she was amazing and still is amazing, right? And she would always find like the the men that kept her in a space where she didn't really understand herself, or I couldn't
mhm.
as a younger watching that and just watching her move through that, I was like, huh, I wonder why she made those choices, right?
Yeah.
And got older, I realized a lot of women are wonderful. A lot of women are smart. They're educated. They're doing all of these things, but there's choosing men that are from a space of how they feel in the inside. And if we can look at that and calibrate that to a space where we feel valued and feel worthy, then we change the whole trajectory of our lives. Because a
Mhm.
lot realize how much love has such a significant impact on who we become and who we choose to be in our lifetime, right? And so
Mhm.
a huge thing. I got tired of seeing women crying. I got tired of seeing women who were amazing kind of go through this like whole thing of losing their spark. I don't know if you've seen that trend on TikTok.
Yeah.
Hey, we got to start like having the conversations before we lose the spark. And of birds this. My background is sexology. Okay. Sexology was my first study. My first study was male sexology because, again, I was on a quest to understand them on a deeper level.
Mhm.
Um, and then I moved into different forms of sexology, from tantra to the metaphysics of sex to all different things. But I realized that a lot of women weren't having an issue with, sex. It was the attraction and having to be attracted to someone that either has hurt you or put you in a position
Mhm.
to that you don't love. And so that's why a lot of women are like, "Well, I just lost, I lost it after 40." I'm like, not really. It could be
Yeah.
could be standing in relationship with yourself and with the person that you're with. Uh,
Mhm.
that was kind of like my whole basis, and I just continued on, and just absolutely have loved doing the retreats and seeing women blossom in that way. And then, let's see, what else did you ask me? You asked me like 4 questions now.
No, it was a loaded question, but I think you touched on everything. But in your experience, so like you said, you have a lot of experience. What would you say is the main reason that women feel unworthy?
Ooh, ooh, that's a loaded one too. Look,
We're just jumping right into it.
I would love to, you know, um, say about that. And one is definitely control through religious efforts.
Mhm.
I hate to have to like put that stigma out there, but we have to be real and we have to look at what religion has taught women to be. And a
Yeah.
lot of empowering for women. I'm not saying anything's wrong with loving God because I'm a God love in woman, but I feel like a lot of what came to control for women and the societal standards stemmed from morality and the modesty era and what we're supposed to be as women, which really, if you peel back the layers and look at all of the things that, most women who are in belief don't want to look at, like Lilith placements and, talking about like the before and all this other stuff that comes into mysticism and religion, they'll see that there's it's kind of a designed that way because we are powerful and know exactly how powerful we are. Women,
Exactly.
the world, women can inherit the world. It's even in the Bible, right?
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes it's scary for our male counterparts, and I feel like it was definitely a design for sure, to put women in a space where they can be utilized and have and gain. They could gain access to things that we can and they cannot.
Yeah.
So the feminine, right? Another from our societal standpoints, we learn to look at our, you know, mothers and our grandmothers and the
Mm-hmm.
generation, right? If I look in culture or I look in the dynamics of just how I was raised, right? A lot of that has to do with how we're programmed as young women, right? So if you see
Yeah.
your mother a selfless mother or you see your grandmother like doing everything, right? We tend to take on that role as like, I have to do this in order to be loved. And we're programmed with
Mm-hmm.
that message by the time we're 7 years old. So whatever you experience before you're 7 years old has a significant impact on how you show up in your life and what you create as the
Mm-hmm.
creator. As you're a creator, as you know, as I love watching your content too about the veils and the things that we choose to believe. And same thing with love. If we believe that we have to be selfless, or we see our mom just give everything, or we see our mom just be guarded, right? My mom was
Yeah.
very my mom was very guarded in love and very different when it came to women. So a lot of what she taught me as a young woman, I had to learn how to decide if it was for me or not, right?
Yeah.
And the last thing I would say is our emotional capacity. A lot of women do not understand. I mean, there's no conversations really about how love, sex, all of that impacts how we feel about ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And with navigating these relationships, men aren't really taught about women's emotional tolls or what it takes to actually share your body and exchange with someone. And so we're just kind
Yeah.
of running around trying to figure it out. And we're again being fed those societal messages that everything is from him, right? So as a
Mhm.
young girl, I know I remembered reading Cosmopolitan, right? And it's like 6 ways to
Yeah.
please a man, 15 ways to, be the best woman you can be. And it was never a book for that on men, right? So
Right.
I think like we are the lesser when it comes to being and operating in this world. And so we do everything we can to conform and say, hey, perfectionism, performance, everything. Hey, I'm amazing, right?
Mhm.
Instead of really embodying that confidence, really embodying that self esteem. So then when we get into relationships, we're like, yeah, I put it on, I got the man, right? And it's like, okay, now what? And then we tend
Exactly.
sacrifice ourselves. We just sacrifice everything, throw our dreams out the window, and we're like, this is part of being a wife and being married. And it's like, but does it make you happy? Right. And I think
Mhm.
that comes down to a lot of things from inner child trauma to not feeling good enough. But it all stems from, I believe those three places are pretty much what I have seen over the few years of just working with women.
Okay, that's great. And I think all three of those points are actually very telling because even when you say like once you get into the relationship, because like you said, from when we're young girls, we do have a lot of programming on like how to be, how to act, but once you so we have this programming of like what we think a wife should be or what we think a girlfriend should be or okay, this is the main chick and this is the side chick and this is good and this is bad, so then we get into these situations and we're just wearing a mask or we're just
Yep.
trying to pretend or just be what we think we are instead of truly embodying like, hey, a wife is going to be different for each man and different for each woman. Like a partnership, a marriage, that's going to look different for everybody. But
Yep.
if you come into it like, oh, okay, yeah, well, this is what I've seen, this is how my mom did it, or this is what I didn't see, this is what I think it should look like, then yeah, it's not going to be very fulfilling for you because you're just putting on a role, like you're playing a role. And then I
Yep.
think another part when it comes to like shame that women feel in religion, and I was thinking about this like some time ago because me, like I'm Christian, I grew up Christian, and through my journey, like when I became a young adult, I started trying to figure out my spirituality, like for myself, what made sense for me. So I tried like everything, like
Yeah.
I've always been on just like this, like seeking, like just wanting to know God for myself. But what I will say is that a lot of times, like as a young girl growing up Christian, it's kind of like you sex is so shameful. Like
Yes.
it seems bad, it seems nasty, it
Do
seems all
it.
these things. Yeah, like you're just like, okay, you don't know. But then it's like, hey, I like this. Well, I kind of want to have sex, like, but then it's bad and all this other stuff. But then if and it's this purity thing, and then you're not supposed to do it until you're married and all these things. But okay, so let's say you do that. Let's say you don't do sex because it's bad, and then finally you get into a marriage. How do you turn that off? So, how do you not have, okay, now finally, this should be the promise. This is the end goal, the thing. So now you're in this marriage, but how do you turn off that conditioning that sex is bad? Like, now, are you supposed to enjoy yourself with your husband now? And that's what I always found to be, I don't know, a catch 22, I guess.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I actually went to ministerial school because I was so intrigued on
Hmm.
how they were teaching women about their bodies.
Yeah.
And what I found was a ton of shame, like you said, a lot of women, young women being taken advantage of because they don't know anything, because nobody's saying anything. And
Hmm.
every Christian mom, every Christian woman, like, hey, I understand, like, yes, absolutely. Your body is a temple, it is a reverence, it is a safe, like, the best thing you can do outside of like purity culture dogma is literally like when you have choice, right? I have the
Hmm.
choice that I want to give my body, and God always gives us choice. But
Hmm.
when we east this act of like creation in shame, much like you said, as I was finding these women who would get married, would do all the right things, and they would get in
Hmm.
relationship like, well, I don't know anything about sex. I don't know. I mean, to the point where they didn't even really know how to conceive because nobody was talking to them about it. And
Yeah.
again, I lived in Utah for a little bit. My man is from Utah. And
Uh-huh.
it literally taught me so much about how women, young women, are taking advantage of because they do not know their bodies. They are trying things that we would never try in the beginning stages sexual journey because they're just like, well, I don't want to shame God. So, the back is better than the front. I'm still a virgin. And I'm like, oh, like, who wants to
Yeah.
start there?
Yeah.
The conversations are really important. And especially when you do get married and you are marrying a man of God. And my man was totally Mormon, totally encased in that
Hmm.
religion for a long time. And him seeing, the benefits of allowing your wife to be in a space of liberation and allowing herself to find out who she is, not just for
Hmm.
him. Self. You should know your body better than your gynecologist,
Exactly.
body better than anybody. But when we have that disconnection, again, like you end up in a marriage and you're like, okay, I know I'm supposed to be a freak for my husband, but I don't even know what that is. And
Exactly.
like, what's going on with my body?
Exactly. And then it turns into this. So the now no one's um enjoying themselves. So the woman, you don't really know that you're not able to please your husband. So it's like he probably doesn't know how to teach you. And then it's like, okay, so you've done all this, you get to the marriage, and then a lot of times the men, they want to get like these pure women, but they can't satisfy them sexually. And then they go and get the freaky girls anyway. So it's like, what is going on? Like this is insane.
And this is what I tell women all the time. Okay, I mean, I don't know if you know too much about where I came from because you see me on TikTok. So
Mhm.
TikTok, I'm there every now and again. I'm still like learning my groove with TikTok. I go and I shoot out a ton of content and then I leave because you can continue content. I love TikTok for that. Like you can leave content there and it does its thing, right?
Yeah.
Unlike Instagram or Facebook where you have to constantly post. And Facebook was my home for a long time, and I have a huge community there. Um, but I was a sex worker and a stripper for 12 years.
Hmm.
Taught me so much about number one, faith, and two, men.
Yeah.
And for my long time, especially after I got out of that world, I was like, what makes men go in there? Like why do we have so many? Why I live in Vegas, right? So I'm like, why
Hmm.
do we have so many? Like, where's the gap that we're not seeing? And it's exactly what
Yeah, like why is it so popular? Like,
right going on. And again, I was even asking my man, I said, okay, you grew up Mormon, you like I'm definitely not the ideal Mormon woman, right? Like that's not
Yeah.
Mormon, well, not even close, you know? So I literally said to him, I said, what made you choose me? You knew my past, you knew everything. And he said to me, because you chose yourself every single time. And I
Wow.
having this conversation about the good girl. That's actually today's conversation about the good. So funny. I love how it's synchronized. But
Mhm.
because we were taught to be demure, to be this like quiet, be, just keep him fed and just make sure he's this and make sure you have sex with him. And that's what your rights are as a husband. But again, if we look at the biological standpoint of men, they do not love like us. So why
Mhm.
give them the same things that we need to feel loved?
Mhm.
But the reality of it is most men want, they literally look at anything and everything from the space of how does it benefit them? And it's a biological mindset. If there's something they can do
Mhm.
about that, like that's just how they see. They're strategists, they're providers, they see the problem, they deal with the problem. That's just masculine nature, right? So
Okay.
understand that there is a space for the good girl and your softness is your power, but there's also a space for your kinky side. There's also a space for you to fantasize. It's okay for that space because, again, you're walking through a journey with someone for a lifetime, right? And
Yes.
what you loved and the sex that you loved to have at 18 hopefully has changed. And you know, some of us like to be headboard queens, not anymore, right? So it's understanding that like you're on a journey with someone, and
Mhm.
a lot of times these men are seeing things, they're very what I call like the physical aspects of sex is sexual energy, and that's
Mhm.
very energy. And most women are sensual energy, which is the embodiment of all of our senses, right?
Okay.
It's the creation energy. Hopefully I'm gonna get some power here, but uh, um it literally is, we engulf life, we romanticize, we make everything beautiful, right?
Mhm.
And it's just a very different, it's just direct, right? Physical straight energy. So if women understood that, right, that we don't love the same way, that we're not attracted the same way, that we have to understand their traumas and what they've been through to actually detail in what their fantasy actually is and play on that part instead of trying
Mhm.
to keep, like I love like I'm gonna keep my man out of there, and I'm like, girl, it's just like,
Yeah. Yeah. Nice try.
but it's understanding, and this is why worthiness is so imperative, and that's why I bring it back to that space, is because when you know who you are,
Mhm.
and I knew a man for 12 years. Okay. When I met him, he was a frat partying boy. I mean, I literally seen him get on the stage and drink like 4 beers at once and like be carried like crazy man. Okay.
Yeah.
But it was my love of myself that made him great. Does that make
Mhm.
so for us to understand that everything starts with us,
Mhm.
house, the marriage, everything, okay? And how we feel about ourselves is how we're going to show up in that. So, for instance, very unconventional is how I live. Okay, me and my partner do not live together. We will never live together. We haven't ever. This
Really? I
collective.
kind of love that. I've been single for a long time now. So it's like I'm used to my space and how things are going. And that is one thing about marriage. I'm just like, I don't know. That would be an adjustment. That's interesting.
Okay, because I sit down and I said, okay, well, you were married before. He was married for 17 years. And I said, okay, we have to unpack what didn't work for you, right?
Yeah.
Because you apparently you guys got a divorce. There were some discrepancies. And so we have to look at what didn't work for you. And for me, I love myself enough to know what is actually going to help me feel love outside of what society is trying to tell me is love, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because a ton of men who their wives have everything, right? They're spoiled, everything. And that man hasn't been faithful since the day he signed the marriage certificate. Okay. So
Yeah.
saying choose yourself an aspect. And I promise you that exactly moves into that. So how we came up with that was like I was single for a long time. I
Yeah.
didn't My house is very girly. It's very pink. It's very styled. It's very what I want it to be. I'm a Taurus, baby. I like I like a good vibe.
Yeah.
No, I don't want to turn into your housemaid. I don't want to turn into like me doing. I don't need. We have 7 kids collectively, right? I
Oh,
don't
yeah.
need another schedule to figure out. I don't need somebody else's laundry to pick up. I don't need any of that. And if I want to, I will. I'm not obligated to.
Mhm.
And that comes in with that. Like when we're so busy trying to like love someone, we're pouring all of this into someone, we are building an underlying resentment because we're not doing it out of a space of love. We're doing it out of a space of expectancy. I
Mhm.
expect dinner on the table. I expect, girl, none of that is going to keep him.
Yeah, yeah.
Often, when I would hear the number one complaint of men who were in the strip club, they would say, because she treats me like my mother does.
Really?
Absolutely.
Wow.
Absolutely. The nurturing. We over nurture. Again, we're expecting them to love like us. Women
Mhm.
nurtured, want to be coddled, want to be loved, want to be respected in that way, want to be catered to. And not to say that you don't cater to your man, there's just different ways that they under like it actually registers to them. Right.
Mhm.
I would be doing all these things and I would be like cooking and I'd go to his house and he'd be like, why don't you just sit down and I'll do my own laundry? Or he'd be like,
Yeah.
let's order out, let's go out, let's go on vacation. I don't want to, you don't need to be cooking right now. Like this is the time that we get together. And bringing it back to why we live separately is because I love that. I love being able to miss him.
Yes.
You know what I
Yes.
mean? Like when I see
Mhm.
him excited, not to say like if I saw him every day, it wouldn't be the same, but for me, it probably wouldn't.
Mhm.
Both
Yeah.
very driven, ambitious person. Like we're
Mhm.
both has his own stuff. He's had his own brokerage now for 26 years. And I'm always doing my coaching thing and doing my thing. So like our schedules, we would be all over the place on trying to be on top of each other anyway. And we would just be all over the place. So to me, like if he has a lot of time to like do everything for me or be right up my butt, right? Then he's not productive.
Yeah.
Right? And if I don't miss you and there's none, like we go on vacations, like we'll be like, okay, let's meet up in New York for our date. You know, let's like he'll be here on Friday and he sends me like for my birthday, he did 30 days of Porsche. He calls it 30 days of Porsche. He sends me a gift every single day. And then the
Mhm.
last he sends me somewhere for 4 hours, which I went to the spa. And then he like sends me like on a treasure hunt of everything that I love. Right. And so
Yes.
too, right? And I love that about him. So I haven't seen him since my birthday. So I get to see him again Friday. And we work out a schedule that works for us. But it just to me, like being able to miss him, not having to feel like his maid and his his like running a whole house, even though I do run
Yeah.
and two, from a financial perspective, it just makes sense. I don't pay my own bills. You know, like
Yeah.
I could
This is sounding sweeter and
you know,
sweeter. Like,
I don't pay my own like he's like what like I don't know he's like traditional in that way. Like we take some traditional stuff out. But like understanding that like the woman that I am too, like if you're dealing with an ambitious man, and I try to tell women again, his effort is how he's gonna love you.
Mhm.
And if you don't extract that effort out of him by having your loving yourself, he's not going to meet you to that in that space, if that makes sense. So the reason why I don't worry, because a lot of women are like, well, don't you worry if he's cheating, or don't you worry if and I say, listen, honey, he has invested so much in me, it would
Mhm.
be insane. And he knows how I feel about myself and that I do love the streets.
Yeah,
um,
okay. Like he knows that. He got that in the back of his mind. That's funny.
and right as well as be faithful because he knows if I have an inkling as an intuitive woman, I'm like, oh no, I gotta go. And to
Yeah.
leave out that door would hurt him, would just tear up his existence. So it's just, and if you can't partner it because they aren't in your face, right, all the time,
Mhm.
then you don't have a relationship. You have a dictatorship. If
Yeah.
I go through all of your stuff, if I have to, like, I literally wake up and I'm not like, where is he? You know,
Yeah.
if I have to like worry about you going to work, and having coworkers, I'm not I'm too old for all of that. I don't want to be your private investigator. I don't want to have to track your location or you to turn like we don't do any of that. It's exhausting.
Exactly.
Spend so much time in the relationship on things that don't matter,
No,
right?
that's right. And
We
it's like when you living like this, it shows actual true love and true trust because like you said, each of you can go and do what you want to do, but no, you all want to be in that marriage, you know?
yeah, we choose each other every day. That's what I tell
Yeah.
people. Is like
No.
I choose him every day. He chooses me every day. And um we've it just I don't know what it would be like to live with him. I don't know. I don't know. And then when he comes to my house, he does my laundry. He loves to cook for me. He loves to cook, girl. He loves to cook. So he's like, all right, when I get there, I'm gonna cook for you. And he does my laundry and he helps me with the kids, but he's just not we just know, like, if we were together all the time, we
Mhm.
probably wouldn't be as in love as we are today.
Yeah, it's almost like you guys have that freshness as if you're like boyfriend and girlfriend, but you have the security of marriage. And
Yeah,
that's great.
yeah. People that meet us all the time, they're like, "Are you guys newlyweds?" And we're like, "No, we've been together for 12 years." I just
Oh
had a
my God.
case, you know? And I get to like hide stuff in the back of the closet when he's here. So when he does get here, he has like all his little things that he loves. But also like when he gets here, we always have a date. We always have something to do. We always have a plan. There's always an intention of bringing us to our time together. And I love that about him. Like we're always like he just texts me like, "Hey, you available Friday? Because I'm gonna take you somewhere." I'm like, "Okay, cool," you know. And it makes
Yeah.
it weird to ask your partner that, right? But for me, when he makes that initiative or he puts in that time and effort, it's like, hey, I'm actually taking the effort and the time out of his crazy schedule to make this time where I can be present with you. And
Yeah.
that's better than like seeing you every day and maybe not loving you as much or maybe not appreciating you as much because you're here all the time. We take it for granted what's always around, right? So,
That is
uh,
true. And one thing I noticed, so I have a 6-year-old son. So one
mhm,
thing I noticed once like I start being around other families and things like that. So sometimes I feel like I'm missing out on something because like I don't have that right now. Like I can't provide my son that. And that's sometimes the
yeah,
narrative I tell myself. But what I realize is sometimes these people, these couples, like they don't like each other at all.
they
Like they'll
don't.
come to the school for stuff and they do not like each other at all.
Don't. No, they don't. You can
Yeah.
friend who, when I met him,
Mhm.
half of his really close friends, they're all getting a divorce or they've remarried.
Yes.
And it's like, but why? And it's because you don't really ask the right questions. People rush, and that's why I say tell my lovely single women, especially women with kids, your standards have to be beyond high because
Mhm.
my son he just turned 20 years old. He's the oldest. My oldest is 20. My oldest. Our oldest is 23 collectively, but my oldest for me is 20.
Okay.
He is not the dad of my boys, and he basically took them under his wing because their dad was like, and so he was like, I'm gonna just raise these boys. And so watching my sons get into relationships and how they treat women because of how they seen and witnessed their mother being treated, it
Yes.
it's everything to me. Like, of course, love me right, but the way that you love my kids and giving them the example of being a stand-up man, of
Mhm.
admitting being able to say, that's what Portia wants. We're going to work for it. Like as we always said, Portia wants it. We got to go. Even though
Yeah.
we like to play the like you have more control thing, but we both are just like goofy about that. But seeing how it has impacted my children, my
Yeah.
daughter, she's so a daddy's girl, and she's so enwrapped in like, well, mom, dad treats my mom right. That's what she always tells people. Dad treats my mom right, and to hear
Mhm.
from so much toxicity when it came to relationships, girl. I would date Love After Lockout, literally, Julius. I don't know if you've ever watched it. I have an ex that you literally reminds me of him. And I'm like, oh my God, I dated that man. Like every time I watch it, I have triggers. Like I'm just like,
Yeah.
shows you like how much growth, but like you say, belief, right? Belief is everything. And so when you hold yourself to saying, what do I actually want in a relationship? Not what everybody is telling me I should have. That
Mhm.
takes courage, and there's no rush in that. There's
Yeah.
you're not missing a thing.
So how did you Okay, so you said that you had kind of those toxic relationships. I'm sure men not really able to meet your needs and things like that. What would you say that you did to now be able to have such a healthy love? Like was there a what changed in you to attract that?
I started believing I was worthy of my own love.
Yeah.
Oof, that almost made me cry.
That's no, that touched me.
Because we don't realize how much that impacts us. We go home with us at the end of the night. You go home with yourself, right?
Yeah.
So if you crawl into bed and you're telling yourself that you are all of these things, or you're missing out, or you're not good enough, or whatever, it stacks up and it shows in our internal or external world, right? So whatever
Mhm.
we deal with, and I knew that like there was a reason I kept meeting the same man. Like if I look at all of my exes, they had the same qualities, but they were just in different hoodies and different clothes. Like
Yeah.
I was like, huh. And I had to really unpack and do that internal work to say, why do I keep saying yes to this cycle? And
Mhm.
again, generational, DNA has a lot to do with that too, because I have a literally a family full of stunning women, and they're all single or divorced. And I said,
Yeah,
okay,
that makes no sense.
now what's going on? What's going on? There's something being taught that's being passed down to generations that's just not, it's not working. And when I looked at all the examples of love and looked at all the examples of, what I was dealing with in the industry, I said, okay,
Mhm.
there's something that's not clicking. And so I said, okay, I'm going to completely cut out any dating. I'm going to completely just sit in isolation and look at myself fully and see myself fully and start to unpack why I do not feel worthy enough. Why am I,
Mm.
girl, I used to chase men. I used to provide for, girl, it was a mess. Oh,
Really?
that was my favorite thing to do. I was making so much money. I was like, oh, he's cute. Let me just take him home. Like, I'm not
Yeah, like it's nothing.
for you. And it did
Wow.
nothing. I'm telling women right now, it does not matter. Yes, absolutely. When you're in a space of softness and you have a man that's showing up for you, for sure. Like there are things that you can do to reciprocate that energy, but at
Of
the same time,
course.
never be like you have to do this and he has to do this and you have to do that. There's an exchange here, and it should
Mhm.
involve everybody's feelings. And again, that shift for me was just really going into those shadows and saying, why do you keep saying yes to this? And then
Yeah,
real thing yet a lot of it is a lot of people do not realize that we are choosing partners that remind us of our parents.
that part. Yeah.
Woo!
And you know what? It's funny you say that because I feel like you're trying to like fix what you couldn't fix with them, right? Like if you had a emotionally unavailable father or whatever the case, so you're like, okay, well, if I can get him to love me, then it's like I win, or it's like
Yes,
you could rewrite that story.
you
Yeah.
absolutely can. I mean, I seen my mom with, I mean, I came from Stockton, California, which is not anything fancy. It is
Oh,
gross.
yeah.
California. But my mom, she loved like, I mean, jailbait. I mean, anything you could possibly think about, right? She dated whatever would love her, right? And that's what, like, again, like when you watch your mom go from like, I'm the oldest of five, so my mom went from like being this really strong woman, and then there was one particular relationship that she was in for 8 years, and I was like, who is this woman? Because she completely morphed into something else. And I would sit on that forever and be like, okay, so do I have to sacrifice myself in order to be loved? And for a long time, I did, because I was like, oh, you need to be the ride or die. You need to be the woman that's always there for him. If he needs you to do this, you have to be somewhat independent, but somewhat taken care of.
Yeah.
Which doesn't make any sense.
Yes.
So it's like, and then it took, I remember, I would tell people all the time, they're like, well, what happened? Like, what was the shift? I had dated a UFC fighter. I used to date a lot of athletes being in the industry.
Mhm.
And um, he was awful. I mean, he was not the best. And after breaking up with him and literally having to orchestrate like leaving my own home, and like just left my house, just took me and my kids stuff and like got out of there.
Mhm.
And I remember sitting in the closet one day, and I was just sitting in the closet. I'm always in the closet. That's where I do a lot of my internal work. Closet. So I was just sitting there and I was just crying. And I didn't know anything about journaling, but something, God told me to pick up a pen. And I just
Mhm.
started writing like literally what I wanted in a man. And 2 months later, there he was. And it was not like, I didn't even, it was the most honest thing, because like I was completely guarded, not looking for love, like didn't even want to
Yeah.
have conversations with men. And I'm like, I don't want to go to dinner with you. Good. Like, leave me alone. I'm in my own world. Um, I remember like meeting him, and I even asked him this yesterday. I said, well, how did you know it was me? Like, how did you know because I mean, he had a plethora of women he was dating. He was actually
Yeah.
dating. Um, I said, well, how did you know it was me? And he goes, I don't know. There was just something in your spirit that sang to me. And he was like, I couldn't look away. He's like, I just couldn't stop talking to you. I couldn't stop. And I was like, but I was so much different. who I am now. He's like, oh no, I've always seen the woman you are now. I've always knew you to be
Mhm.
her. He's like, you just needed the space to know. And it still to this day is like, wow, we've been together this long. A lot of people didn't. We're totally opposites, like total opposites.
Really?
But what I tell women is it's not, oh, very opposite, girl. I'm from like Northern California. I love everything that's like total freedom, right? Total expansion freedom. I could wake up on a Tuesday and be like, I'm gonna go to the strip just because, I'm just gonna go down there and see where God takes me. Here we go. And I always meet like the people that way. I'm like, I'm gonna sit here and just do the thing. He's totally opposite. He has to have a plan. He has to be, he's very organized, very responsible. He hunts. He's been in Utah his whole life. Like very, very different. As to me, I'm like, save the animals, Mama Earth. We're totally different. But I feel like compatibility is our heart. It's in our heart. And when I chose to like write that, and I say women all the time, write a list of what it is you want, not what society tells you should have, blah, blah, blah. Write it down. And then every date that you say yes to, I want you to go on that date and then think in your head about that list and then look and see if you are choosing what's on your list. Because if you say, oh, well, I want a man who's going to respect me, and he doesn't even respect the waitress, right? Or
Yeah.
he talks about his
Mhm.
ex or mother. Okay, his mother, ladies,
Yeah,
ask
yeah,
questions about his mama. Okay, it tell you so much about them. Okay, if he hates his mother, I hate to tell you, but he's not going to like you very much, right?
yeah.
Unless there's a bona fide abandonment. Even then, like if he has abandonment issues, or him and his mom have like this control thing, or his mom's overly controlling, or she's like, one of those moms that does everything for him. Remember, again, we actively do marry some components that come from our parents. We
Yeah.
choose things like that. Like I said, even in the subconscious mind, we're trying to undo or rewrite the story that we have with our fathers as women, right?
Mhm.
And others too, because I was raised by my mom most of the time. My dad wasn't part of my life. And so I was chasing, right?
Mhm.
The love and validation from the masculine. And a lot of women are, and
Mhm.
that's why we're not I literally get all the time, especially for my clients there. They go all over the place and do all different types of things. But one in particular, she sent me about a date that didn't go very well. And I said, well, why did you stay?
Yeah.
And she goes, I never asked myself that question. And I said, well, let's start asking that question. Why do we, like, one of my favorite things is I tell women, like, they're like, oh, I want to go on a coffee date because I can leave early and I can just, I don't feel bad about leaving. And I'm like, no matter where you are, you
Yeah.
gotta, you gotta go. Like, that this person, again, if he's not fitting that list, I'm not saying like he's got to be 6'2", 3'5", whatever that song is, right?
Mhm.
Like obviously, physically, whatever. But what I'm saying is like the respect, the morals, the values, the ethics of that
Mhm.
person. If it doesn't match and it's already some crazy stuff on date one, then it's
Yeah.
probably going to be a lifetime of crazy stuff. So
No,
pay attention.
seriously.
Ask
And that
questions.
brings that that brings me to what you were saying, like when you were dating the UFC fighter. And okay, because nowadays we hear a lot about like high value men. So an athlete, a professional athlete, that appears to be high value. But I feel like
Yes.
we are totally not talking about those things that you mentioned that really matter. Like how's his heart, how's his character, how does he treat people, because those are the things that determines your value, not how much money
Yep.
you have, not what you do. So
Yep.
because, and I think also as women we get blinded by that too. So if
Yes.
we'll have high standards, they'll be so high. As soon as a man got a little money, we start negotiating like, well, he ain't that bad. Well,
Oh my
and I
God.
think that's very important too.
Yeah, girl. Oh my God. You had posted something on Instagram, and on the same day, I literally had just posted about what you just said. And I
Mhm.
literally talked about how I got into this relationship with this guy. I met him one day, the next day, he had a brand new BMW for me downstairs in the garage. He's like, here's the key to your car, right? And
Mhm.
I didn't come from anything. So I'm like, oh man, okay, pretty woman scenario, right?
Yeah.
No, no. Again, this is what I tell women. We live in a society of men, right? And this is the
Mhm.
harsh reality is this world is designed for them. So money is kind of something they're supposed to have, like a foundation. It's not their character.
Yes.
Because there's a lot of men with money who are terrible,
Yes.
who are not good men. They're abusive, verbally, physically, all the things. And you will end up in a situation like that again if you don't know your worth. You have
Mm-hmm.
to be worth in all of it. So, like, even if you date someone who's a multimillionaire, multi-billionaire, and all they're doing is giving to you, but they're not giving to you, that doesn't
Yeah.
mean anything. There's a difference between being taken care of, and being cared for.
Mm-hmm.
Big difference. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So if he has the money and that's all he has is the fact that he's got money, then that's not the man for you. And you have to know that you are worthy of all, right? Of
Yes.
being spoiled as a queen, but also a man that says, you know what, I'm not here to fix, I'm here to help. Because I was in a relationship with someone who had a ton of money and all they knew how to do was fix things.
Yep.
Oh, you're sad? Don't cry. Let me go tell you something. And it's like, no, no, no. I need you to see me. I
Yeah.
need you to see and feel this. Like, and you're just on your way. The same guy that bought me the BMW. Just he would
Mm-hmm.
just all he did. He was great at buying stuff. He was never there. He was never emotionally intelligent for any of that. And then I would like catch him cheating all the time. So
Yeah.
because again, when you're dating men that have money, you have to understand they have access
Yes.
to a
You
lot
are
of women.
preaching. Like, yes.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I was I was literally at a restaurant with my mom on my birthday. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm just like sitting there waiting for my car to come in. And here comes this guy in this gorgeous Ferrari. I like cars. I'm a car girl. My name's Portia. So I'm like, oh, that's a nice car. So
Yeah.
I'm not paying any attention to him. He literally stopped ballet and he's like being the most obnoxious person in the world, just trying to get my attention. And I'm like, no, I'm like putting my back towards him. I'm doing everything I can
Yeah.
to like keep driving. And he's like, hey. And I'm like, hey. My mom has always told me, hey is for horses, okay? I'm
Yeah.
like, hey. That's for going with this. And he's like, I just wanted to see if the front matched the back. And I was like, but knowing where I live in Las Vegas, knowing that he's driving a $500,000 Ferrari, right?
Mhm.
A lot of girls would have been like, he's
Exactly.
showing you who he is right there. Again, money is what they're supposed to have. So when we take that away and we actually see them for who they are and their character, a lot of them would not stand up. All they have is money. And that's why they
Exactly.
obtain it. It's their main focus and
So
they're buying all these things because
exactly.
they
And
don't
that's
feel the same
exactly
way about themselves inside.
and they can use
Yeah.
it as a shield. Like you'll never get in, you'll never get into their heart, you'll never know who they truly are because
Yeah.
they'll just use this to like keep you at a distance but also keep you close. It's
Yeah.
honestly the silliest situation to get into, and that's why on my platform I always say, like, when you work on yourself, when you invest in your education, invest in your career, you'll naturally put yourself in environments around other people who are also doing well for themselves. So then you'll have a picking. Every man you deal with has money. It doesn't matter.
Yes.
Like you can
Yes.
actually sit. Yeah, you can sit down and see his character. Okay, do you work well for me? Like, how does this like? Can you meet my needs? Because every man I
Yes.
date has money. So now what? You know?
So exactly. And that's what I had that came from my work, of me
Mhm.
understanding like Portia, they all should have money. Okay, so now
Yeah.
that we throw that out the window, right? What are we looking at? Right? Because
Mhm.
again, my ex, I lived in a beautiful home, everything you could ever think of, 6 or 7 cars, Bentleys, whatever. But I was so dead inside. I
Yeah.
was like literally crying and like taking my own life because I was so unfulfilled. I had like unfulfilled and I had everything. A 10,000 square foot home. And I literally was like the most depressed person I could ever think of because I was bought,
Yeah.
right? And a lot
Mhm.
of women don't and too that if he's not in his divine right or he's not in it, he's not, in his own principle of like literally being a man. I mean, to me, you got to be a man of God because I don't know anything. I don't know if you don't believe in God. I literally
Yeah,
cannot
yeah,
go
what are
to
you doing?
God. I mean, like, are you actively meditating and praying? Are you actually like putting intention into your life and praying? You know what I'm saying? Those are things that are really important to me. But a lot of them don't. And a lot of them have sacrificed their life and things to have this money. And they're utilizing it as a, as a way to monopolize the market.
Mhm.
And they're also utilizing it as a manipulation tactic. You know how many, like, and it's sad truth, but like there's so many older men, way older, and they're going out for 20-year-olds. And it's
Yeah.
not because the 20-year-olds look better, it's because they're easily manipulated,
Yep. Simple as
right?
that.
And what like, oh girl, you've got a bin. Like, who cares? Like, like
Mhm.
it doesn't matter anymore. It doesn't matter. But because I know that, yeah, I look at a man that has money and I don't necessarily I see him for who he is, right? And that took me to take off that lens of the poor girl from Stockton, California, or the girl who doesn't deserve anything and needs to work really hard in order to have love, right?
Yeah.
And like I never forget too, like the first time went on a date with my man, and I said to him, I was like, well, like who takes care of you? Like, how do you to be like such a goofball? I was like, so like, I was talking to him a little bit about like, roles in that way and like how much and he's like, why do you like do this? Or like, why do you work here? Or one of these things. And so he told me, like, why do you work in the clubs and things like that? And I told him,
Mhm.
and he was like, you've had men like that you've had to like give money to, like you've had to pay for their stuff. And like, he's like, I can't wrap my head around that. He's like, because I'm such a grown man. Like, I would feel almost guilty if, he will not, to this day, girl, it's been 12 years. He will not let me pull up my checkbook for anything. He will not, if he's with
Wow.
me and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to Costco. He'll get right up. He's like, we're going to Costco. Let me go get what you need. And it's like, he never had that in his system to
Yeah.
monopolize me in that way or to like come up off of me in that way. And I feel like women who, the axis swings the opposite way, we have to realize that like if all we see is what we can benefit, right?
Mhm.
It's never going to be love. It's
Yeah.
always going to
Simply.
be it's going to be a transaction. And so if you're willing to be a sex worker for your entire marriage,
Then go for it.
and you're just willing to be, transaction, you raise the kids, like, and if you're willing to do that just so that you can have stuff that's inherited, like you talk about manifestation all the time, it's our divine right to be wealthy, right? That's who we
Yeah.
are. That's, God's love is being able to monetize. God's love is to be able to live in the freedom that money provides us. It's not our God, it's a tool, right? So when we
Mhm.
understand it that way, it's like, okay, yeah, you have some nice things, but that doesn't mean I'm never going to have nice things if I don't choose you. And does
Exactly.
it mean I can't? Yeah, like who's gonna? I'm of God. It's limitless, right?
Yeah.
So
Right.
yeah, it's right. It's nice that you have a Ferrari. It's nice that you have this beautiful job title, but who are you to the core of your being? And that's why why women have to like listen when we go on these dates. And sometimes they try to throw us off with those $400 dinners.
Mhm. And it
It's
works.
like
It's effective. That's why they do it. Like it's effective. And it but it takes us to take a step back, to say, okay, what is it that I really want? Like you said, do I want to be in transactional relationships for my whole life? Is that really truly what I want? And I also like what you said that when you met your now husband and early in your dating, like you were open about your past relationships and trauma or things that you dealt with in your past relationships, because the only way to vulnerability is very important. And if you want to build something like a bond with someone, you have to be open and you have to be vulnerable. And I know we hear a lot of advice like, oh, don't tell anyone what your last man did because they're going to turn around and do it. But like you said, your man, that's not even his character. Like it's not even in him. So
right,
whether he knew that happened or he didn't know, it's not like something he's going to do to use against you because it's not even his character. So I like that. Yeah.
right, and yeah, and that's why you take your time, right?
Hmm.
So from the beginning in the first date, obviously I'm telling him these things, right? But
Hmm.
as I started to know him, I started to see his heart and how he treats people and how he has such a deep, he had daughters, he has daughters and he has daughters and he has such a deep reverence for the feminine.
Yeah.
Um, then it started to crack open a little bit because I was a hard shell, I was like,
Mhm.
I don't know if you're gonna be here tomorrow, so
Yeah.
I think there's definitely
Yeah.
a time and place, but you can test that, right? You can test that. by watching and paying attention to what they say about their exes and what they say about their experiences with women. And also, like, if you can't trust them with, like, this is how I feel about something, right? And it could be something like, my cat died today, right? And this is a really hard moment for me. If they can't hold that, they can't hold anything else. You know what I mean? Like, if they can't be like, oh my God,
Yeah.
I'm so sorry for, I'm so sorry, or whatever the case they need to, whatever they need to
Yeah.
say. But if they can't hold that, they probably don't have the capacity for it, like, emotionally trying to understand and unpack. Because I have a lot of trauma with men, okay, especially
Yeah.
coming from where I did. Um, Very open about my past because I didn't want him. I'm very, very clear about who I used to be and what world I came from, because I didn't want him to find. I mean, I would know girls right now who are married and their husband doesn't know they were a stripper. I'm like, I
Really?
know you didn't mean girls don't talk, but they'll be like, I'm like, oh, okay. They'll be like, girl, like when you see my husband, don't say nothing. I'm like, okay, I
Oh
could
my
never
God. What a
be
big secret.
in a relationship like. Oh yeah, like, and imagine you finding out, like, because somebody's gonna recognize you. I mean, it just, God has a way of opening them closets, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I wanted him 100% with who he was in a relationship with, and I knew at the time, like, who I was and what I believed in and who I was on my way to being. And so I didn't have a lot of, like, shame with where I came from or any of that. I was like,
Mhm.
this is just where circumstances led me, and it is what it is. But I feel like a lot of women, they tend to, like, again, like you said, the money, the all of that stuff, it's beautiful, right? And I do have a relationship with an incredible man who is very, successful in what he does. I couldn't imagine it any other way. But again, at the same time, it's not holding me here. And he knows that.
Yes.
He's like, Portia, I have Portia, but I don't have Portia. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Like, she's not mine to possess. She's not mine to, like, people always say, well, oh, well, you went and got some tattoos. Did you have to tell your husband about it? I'm like, no, he sees it.
No. Yeah.
No, permission, I advise for sure, like, hey, I'm gonna go do this, or I'm going out with the girls this weekend. If you need me, I'm here, or whatever. But
Mhm.
it's not like weird possession piece of, like, this person is mine and they can't, like, we can't do that. Like, it's
Yeah.
just, there's a lot of time in that. But when you know your man's character and you understand him on a level of, he's not perfect. My man is not perfect, girl. He's sometimes a mess. But I know him, because men are
Yeah.
very predictable. Ladies, learn how to study your man. You will know him forever. Very predictable people. Women, we're all over, right? Like, we're like the Mother Nature. We're like a tornado one day. We're having a hurricane the next. Excuse me. Case with men. Men are very, like I said, that direct sexual energy. It's
Mhm.
a very, you already know what's going to happen. So if you know who your person is and you can honor that and you can be a part of that, and if it does change, you constantly have to ask yourself that question: do I still want to be a part of this? But for the
Mhm.
most part, I know him, and we're compatible because of that. Like,
Yeah.
like, some women are, oh my God, he didn't tell me he loved me last night. I'm like, girl, I'm not going to argue with him about that. Like, I know he loves me.
Exactly.
you know, there's times where he'll go up to the cabin. We have a cabin in Schofield, Utah, and he'll go fishing at like 7 in the morning. I won't hear from him till 12. Right? Okay,
Mhm.
fine. Oh, hey, you're alive. Please let me know that you're alive. And that's all I text him. Like, just let me know you're alive. He'll be like, I'm
Mhm.
alive. And I'm like, okay, good. I don't need to, like, we just don't have the kind of relationship where it's just like a constant, yes, absolutely. Hey, babe, I'm going to be doing this, or I'm over here doing that. And he'll be like, okay, go do that, or good luck. Or like today, this morning, I said, I have a podcast interview. I'm going to go. And he's like, oh, an interview. Nice. Good luck on that. Like, it's not that, like, weird, underlying things that come from most traditional relationships. But
Yeah.
like, I love that question so much. Is like, what clicked for me? And it was like, I'm worthy. And so it's now time to start unpacking that
Yeah.
trauma, time to start doing work, time to get closer to God, because I didn't really know God like that. I knew of God, but I was like, I'm going to need to really know God.
So
Really
yeah.
know, very intimate space where God can be like, and then after a while, when you start to really calibrate that word from the inside out, you stop attracting. You start, like, you
Exactly.
go through a phase, like, am I even attractive? Because men are not looking at me. It's not because you're
Oh,
not
that's
attractive,
where I
because you're,
am right now.
it's just,
That's the phase I'm in. And it's funny, I posted something
yeah,
yesterday about that. Like, I'm like, man, they don't even look at me. And it was funny because I talked about this in my previous episode, but after I start like really working on myself and like, getting serious about my self-worth, what I want out of a relationship with a man and things like that. And because I was in such a broken state, like I had to build it from the ground up. So
Yes,
I too had to
girl.
I had to like
So
really submit myself to, God and really like do some work. But I was praying, I'm like, God, I can't discern every man who comes up to me, so don't even, if this man is not gonna, if he's not gonna be like a good match for me, if he's not gonna be who you need this man to be in my life, don't even let him look at me, don't let him talk to me. And I remember, like, when I started praying that prayer, like, I was at the grocery store this one time, and this guy, he sees me walk by. I mean, I'm in the aisle, so he walks by and he sees me. So he comes down the aisle. So I'm, just minding my business. And it's like he walks, he gets close, and it's like he was trying to say something, but it's like he literally could not open his mouth. Like he just left. Like, and I'm like, oh, okay.
Jeremy was like, no,
Right.
not you.
And I'm like, okay, fine. But this, I knew it was my prayer that was working because it happened again, that shopping trip. So I'm shopping, and this other man comes, and it's like he was walking towards me to say something, and he couldn't say anything. And I'm like, yeah, more of that, because you don't even want anything.
Yeah, truly. And I would say, like, again, when you see yourself and understand your divinity is something that you hold, right? A lot of times I didn't even know what that meant, until a couple of years ago. I was like, divinity, huh, interesting.
Mhm.
And again, we don't put ourselves in the space of being of God, right? We put God in a space out there. So we have like this validation thing that we're doing, right? To be worthy, to
Mhm.
be whatever. But when we put it in a space here and we know that, like, I look at God as my father, I look at God as the thing that's created me, what would God want from my life? And
Yeah.
if you look around and you're like, not this, then it's time to go.
Mhm.
Right? Or like God would that person, like this is the person, the thing that's like so proud of you and that's made you
Yeah.
and created you. And like with your son, like you're not gonna let just date whatever, right? He's gonna make his own choices, but you would hope that he would choose somebody that how you feel about him, right? Who loves
Exactly.
him like you do in their own way. But that's in the same way. Like I look at my daughter. I have my one biological daughter. We have four daughters. There's so many of them. There's four daughters, three boys. But I look at my oldest, my older girls, and I'm like, because they grew up in such like the good girl, Mormonism, do what you're supposed to
Yeah.
be told, the man is da da da. I look at them and I say, hey, but again, even though you're doing what God wants you to do, also understand that God wouldn't want you to compromise just to say that you're
Yeah.
married. God wouldn't want you to accept anything just so that you could be in love and procreate or whatever you guys think in that process.
Yeah.
But it's like you're the most gentle, most loving thing. You are literally here and created just for some person or just for this purpose or just for whatever it is. And it's not going to be just like some guy who just is nonchalant, doesn't care if you exist, cheats on you all the time, causes you all these
Yeah.
problems. Like that's not for you,
It makes no
no, not
sense.
for you.
Yeah.
No, it makes no sense. Why would God want his most prized possession, somebody he gave his own like son to for our sins, right? To be like,
Mhm.
what? Just so.
Yeah. Oh, that's good because when you think of it like that, yeah, it wouldn't. Why would that doesn't even, that's not a line.
Oh, like we literally Jesus died on the cross for us to settle? No, I don't think so.
No.
Right? And
Exactly.
so I just feel yeah, when women understand like our divinity from our feminine space, like we were chosen to be women, we were chosen to be the portal, to bring in life, to be this like closeness to the divine, then we have to live in that divinity. And you wouldn't hand off, your entire checkbook to some guy on the street. You wouldn't give all your precious gold and your children and everything to some random
Yeah.
stranger who just seems great, right? He seems great.
Right.
Let me just give you my kid. So I've always looked at myself like, okay, would I want my daughters in the position that I'm in? And I asked my man the same question. I was like, would you want your daughters to marry you,
Yeah.
to somebody like you? I want you to think about that every single day. And he's like, yeah, that's a deep one. It is, because
Yeah.
we if that we don't see ourselves, unfortunately, women especially, we don't see ourselves as unique, or again, and we don't know our divinity, then quite frankly, I don't think we should be dating. Because if we're putting ourselves, we become pretty prey. That's why there's so many love coaches out there that teach you about aesthetic, and like the high value thing drives me nuts, because you should not be determining somebody's value based on some of the things that they like. It's like, no.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No, that's,
Like, yeah,
oh
he has
my
a
God.
job and yeah.
Yeah, the
Like, it doesn't matter.
misinformation with the high value stuff, like I'm
Oh,
tired of it. I'm tired of
drive
seeing it.
through the wall. And what
Yeah.
also drives through the wall is like, when I look at feminine teachings, it's all about aesthetic. So
Yep.
yeah, girls how to be very beautiful and to be poised and things like that, but you're not teaching about the internal regions, and you're just making them pretty prey. You're not allowing
Yes.
them to understand the biological standpoint of what we're dealing with in the masses of the masculine. You know,
Mhm.
we're dealing with very different scenarios. We have a lot of men who are very much smarter than we think they are.
Yeah.
And like you said, there's yeah, so much smarter. We're like, oh yeah, he doesn't know. Yeah, he knows, girl. He knows the difference. And so it's just being able to understand, when we operate in our principle of knowing who we are as our divine spirit, as a divine feminine, then
Mhm.
she's walking in her divinity, and she's repelling anything that's not for her, but she's also not afraid to say, this isn't working,
Yeah.
right? Or not afraid to be like, I had a client who came the other night for one of our events. We do events here in Vegas, and she said, well, when do I know, like, to like cut it off? And I said, well, that's a question that you've already been asking. You guys have been dating for 3 weeks. I think maybe it's time to cut it off.
Yeah.
Because we have to
Yeah.
listen
After
to
3 weeks.
ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or wait, he's already doing things that you don't love, and you're very vulnerable. A lot of us are very vulnerable. We're wanting to be loved so deeply. We're wanting to be loved so badly. We're seeing all this romanticism. But I always tell women, like, especially women who are single, like, take your time. Oh, especially when I hear, oh, well, a man isn't, well, if he doesn't want to love you in 2 years, he doesn't love you. Well, first of all, you're barely getting to know who he is after the first year. And if
Yeah.
you have children, my man didn't meet my 3 years. My man knew I had children, did not see them. He heard of them, didn't see them for 3 years. Why? Because those are my babies,
That's
you know?
good.
And worthy, like a woman who understands her worth, understands my precious assets, right?
Yeah.
I'm not just
Mhm.
gonna let you just have free range and be in their energy and decide that you don't want to be come and go as you no, like, this has to be for real in order
Yes.
for you to meet my kids. And we have to understand that, like, we are putting ourselves into so many predicaments when we are just working on our external regions. Like, yeah, of course, girl, I love being a woman. Absolutely. We get the fun of everything. We get the makeup, we get the
Yeah.
hair, we get the nails, go to the spa, we get all the good stuff. But if we're not, like, we're only doing that for validation, number one, or we're only doing that to feel something, and we're not actually going inside and saying, okay, if I literally shaved my head bald and I had no access to anything, do I still feel this about myself? And if
Yes.
there's a little there, then we have to calibrate that worthiness. If you go to a dinner, I'm talking about how I took one of my VIP clients. We went to a golf course, and I paid for lunch at the country club, and she was like she was so uneasy. And then she was just like, I'm, she's like, she didn't know how to receive it. And then there was these guys that were like sending us all different kinds of stuff. They were like, do you guys want food? Do you guys like, we're just, happy old men. They're so sweet. And sending us stuff. And she's like really uncomfortable. And I said, honey, if you cannot receive a $400 dinner or a $200 lunch or whatever, right? Why do
Mhm.
you equate that price that you're actually worthy of? Because you're not worthy of like your price, like you're not worthy of a price tag. Like that's not even the same
Right.
caliber. Like it's the same thing, right? So you shouldn't be saying like, oh, I'm not worthy of a $400 dinner. Like, why? You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Or
Yeah.
like, because he gave me $400 dinner, I'm gonna go home with him and do all these things. Like, there's just so many things that we have to understand that stem from our worthiness, and that you are worthy of those things. And you have to understand and allow yourself to receive, um, and not in a space of guilt or in a space of like, just because I am or whatever it is. It's just literally because of what is. And
Mhm.
when we understand that, we're not putting ourselves in where we can be manipulated, or that we are
Mhm.
doing so much for so little. You know,
Yeah.
when like you said, you were on the ground. I was too, girl. I didn't know what breadcrumbing was. I didn't know any of that stuff, right? Girl, a guy was like, "You're pretty." I'm like, "Oh, okay, he loves me," you know. Um, you work, you know, or because he was good looking.
Yeah.
God, the fine ones get me. Yeah,
Mhm.
really good. Like my ex, he was so stunning. Like I always had really good looking exes, but again, because of who what they were allowed to receive from women, or what they were allowed to manipulate, or because of those looks, or because of that money, it taught me a lot about, like, wow, you could literally think that person's perfect and they look amazing and all of that, and you look amazing, but inside it's just dead.
Yeah.
There's nothing keeping you there. There's nothing that's fulfilling. There's nothing that um it's just not the same.
Yeah. And I like when you had said that when we focus on like the external things and we listen to this different advice, it just makes us pretty prey. I'm going to ask you because you have experience in the adult industry, sex work, whichever you want to call it. But this is my only issue with that advice. Okay, so yes, we tell a girl, okay, just make yourself really pretty. Like the guys will come, just make yourself really pretty, but you're sending them out there with misleading information. So if you look really pretty and approachable, or whichever the case, you're going to attract a lot of men. But if you're
Yep.
getting advice to basically enter into sex work and you do not have the mindset of a sex worker, you're going to get eaten alive.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Okay. Totally good point. And that's why I say, um, when we just, again, from an external region, we're just teaching women how to be beautiful, or how to sit with grace, or all those things. We're not
Hmm.
teaching them we're teaching them external factors, right? So when they actually do get with somebody that he might be high value, whatever that means, and then he might be, whatever, but if you don't love yourself, if you don't have a deep devotion to yourself, if you don't have self-esteem, you are going to literally fast track your way into a situation that you may not ever come back from. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Hmm.
And yeah, people who are teaching sex work, yeah, there's a lot of women who don't make it. I know a lot of women. I was in the industry for 12 years. Half of them are not here anymore.
Oh man, have Jesus.
Half. Okay. I work with a nonprofit organization here called the Cupcake Girls, and
Mm.
it's to help women get off the streets and trafficking and all that thing and all those things. And only reason, like I say, I look at trafficking, I look at all that stuff. The only reason why women get into that stuff is because they don't know their worth or their value, and they're continuously looking for that male validation. So yeah, you could throw it on, have the best eyebrows, have the best nails, or whatever. But if you don't have a sense of self, you don't know when it's time to walk away. You don't
Mhm.
know being manipulated if you're just saying yes.
Yeah.
Right? My good girls, like I tell my good girls, you do not belong on the apps, babe. You don't.
Yeah.
Don't
Yeah, yeah,
be
yeah.
people pleaser. Yes, you're going to put yourself in a situation.
Yeah.
Okay. Especially when you're doing stuff like Tinder, where you're just like, I call it coochie DoorDash, because it is. It's just literally you see somebody, you push,
Mhm. Yep.
know, and I mean, and some of the most interesting things that I get in questions or responses to, like, what's your worst date, and a lot of it is good girls who've gone on like Tinder or Bumble or these things, and they're like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, stay, because that's what I'm supposed to do. And even though this man is literally not anything close to what you should be dating, or is all about the sex, right? Women still
Yeah.
give in, because again, you look good, but your mindset isn't there. It's just not
Yeah.
there. And that's just not, it's not a fun place to be when you're really
Yeah.
pretty and you're just in, and saying yes to whatever,
Mhm.
and a lot of times the most prettiest women have the lowest self-esteem,
Yeah.
and that's, they're doing all of this, right? And again,
Mhm.
I'm all for it. I'm all for it. I love to get dressed. I love to be a girl. But they're doing it when you're doing it for you, and you're like, "Ooh, I look good, and I feel good about how I look, and I feel good internally. My outside is matching my inside."
Yeah.
It's very different than I'm doing because I want to get a man, or I'm doing this for my man, or I'm doing, like, there's times, this might be personal, but there's times where I'm like, I'm not shaving.
Yeah,
My man doesn't
right.
care. He's, you know, going her to like this meme. We seen this meme once, and it was like it's like getting a. He's like, I still eat a Jolly Rancher out of the carpet. Like, men don't care
Yeah.
as much as we think they do, right? But we feel it's like, for instance, too, like I know men who will literally look for the girl who's very well put together because he knows that deep inside she doesn't really love herself.
Wow.
Because he can tell that she's doing all the Botox, she's doing all the plastic surgery, she's doing all of that because the inside she will never feel enough. So they will go and grab that girl, and then you'll hear the most awful things, like he's mentally, physically, emotionally, verbally abusive. Because number
Wow.
one, he has money. So 9 times out of 10, he got the money so that he can abuse women. There's a lot of men who do. They'll say, oh my
Yeah.
God, I could never get that girl, right? The most beautiful woman in the world. I can't get her unless I have money. And when I do, I'm going to try to bring her down to humble
Sick.
her. to
That
humble.
is sick.
Man, I remember one time I was sitting and I was listening to my man talk with his cousins, his boy cousins, and he said, she's really beautiful, but you're going to have to break her down to build her up.
Are you
Like
serious?
the heart was too high. Like I loved myself too much. And trust me, my ex took that advice because he tried everything in his life, everything in our relationship to do that, to humble me.
Wow.
And I was taking care of him.
What? Like, no, if anybody's doing the humbling, I'm doing the humbling. Oh my God. Are you
They don't like
serious?
what, right? Yes. And it stemmed from his own, again, his trauma. A lot of these men have slept with women, they have slept with their mothers, they have slept with whoever raised them. And again, if we are looking at our mothers and we're going through all navigating all of this, especially as men, I don't really can't say what the full process is for them because I'm not a man.
Mhm.
But you start to get your own ideas about what women are. You start to, if you see your mom just say yes to your dad all the time as a man, like what does that tell
Yeah.
you about women, right? Or if you're expecting
Mhm.
your woman to be anything like your mother, right? Like your mother all the time. Like what do you expect him to really be able to connect to when it comes to actually bonding? Like you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
if he doesn't know how to bond with his surroundings of women, if he doesn't like his sister, doesn't like his mom, doesn't like his ex, doesn't like any woman in his life, like he probably gonna like you. It doesn't matter how much money he has, but there are men who will sought after very well taken care of women. Who, again, when we go on these dates, we're like, "Oh, sorry that I look this way," or "You look beautiful." "Oh, I look okay." Like they notice that stuff.
Oh, wow.
They harp on it. They were like, "Oh, she's really pretty, but she doesn't even know she's pretty." And those are their favorite kind. Manipulators' favorite kind is a girl who's stunning and has no idea.
Wow. That's
Easy,
scary.
easy. Yeah. Oh, it's so crazy. And I think my mom though, before I was really, really young, because again, my mom's stunning. I come from a line of beautiful women. She said, I understand that you're pretty, Portia, but I want you to also be smart. Okay.
Good.
I still want you to understand, right? That like it's go ahead, be your beauty, do your thing. But I also
Mhm.
want you to be smart. I said that stuck with me my whole life, but I would see, especially in the strip club, girls, so many stunning women.
Mhm.
And that's the whole essence of the strip club is stunning women who know no value of themselves.
Mhm.
And money has become their god. And that's a recipe for disaster. And that's why some of them would never come home because they were either killed or murdered by their regulars. Some of them would get caught in safe spaces and places with traffickers, with pimps, and all kinds of stuff. I mean, you'd be so surprised. Some of the most beautiful women in the world would choose a pimp. It's
Yeah.
it's wild because again, yeah, it's so wild, and I mean stunning. I mean, women that literally you would be like, no, no way. But
Mhm.
when you really look at what they feel about themselves, because they haven't calibrated that worth, they don't see themselves worthy, they don't have self-esteem. Again, they're putting on that mask of makeup. They're putting on those, the mask of the injections and the boobs and all the things, right? They're not fully seeing themselves. And they're
Yeah.
being told over and over and over again. When you have that abuse, physical abuse, mental abuse in conjunction with not knowing your value, it's a recipe for disaster. And
Yeah.
most women do not find themselves beautiful. Most women do not find themselves attractive. They do not find themselves valuable. They're constantly, let me find a man so I can nurture him, so I can prove that I'm a good woman. Instead of like, I'm a good woman, whether he's here or not.
Yeah.
I'm, if I say I'm a good woman, and what I know to be true about myself, right? So
Mhm.
yeah, like when you like, that's one of my biggest pet peeves about the feminine teachings is just us. Oh. If only it were that easy, we would all be with the man of our dream.
Exactly. It's like put on a dress and then go to a hotel bar and then the world is yours. It's kind of like
Yeah,
no, no, no. Or this is my other issue with that. For okay, my first issue is you just take very nice regular girls and you like throw them into the world of sex work totally unprepared because men who are into that world, they know what a single girl sitting at the bar means. But you don't because you just heard someone on the internet just say this is what you should do. So you're putting yourself in a very
yeah,
vulnerable situation. Whereas as the girl who's actually about that life, the girl who's actually, a true bona fide sex worker, she'll know how to work that scene a lot better than you because she's seasoned. So it's unsafe. It's misleading. And I'm just tired of hearing about it. But also the
oh
the
yes,
other part is that okay, so then you when you a lot of the teaching they're teaching women how to deal with like these men who primarily deal with sex workers, like that's their jam. But then
yeah.
you meet regular Tom who's the construction worker or the IT guy, just a regular normal guy, and you go with these demands and this attitude with him where it's like he's not that type of guy. Like things may go a little slower with him, and that doesn't make him a bad guy. So I
Mhm.
don't know.
Yes, girl, I know. And one of the things that I tell women all the time too, especially when it comes to choosing, like whether IT guy or whatever the case may be, is like at the end of the day, you have to say, if I'm with this man, right, and he is in this area or this arena of his life, right?
Mhm.
Again, it goes back to character because you
Yes.
can. I know a lot of CEOs that are not nice. I know a lot of men who own businesses that are horrible and just
Mhm.
have really bad character. So again, we're going back to the character, right? And
Mhm.
he may not be, I'm not saying you have to date the struggling musician. What I'm saying is at least he wakes up every day with an intention and a purpose,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Even
Mhm.
when I was with my dad, even when I was with my kid's father, he wasn't, owning his own brokerage and doing that thing. He was a very regular man, but
Mhm.
his character and his values is what got me pregnant.
Yeah.
And we're still good friends.
That's
Still a
good.
great
Mhm.
guy. I don't have qualms with him. But at the end of the day, it was it's just really like, okay, like you said, look at the character, look at his ethics, look at if he's a hardworking man and he's doing what he's supposed to do. And like again, my ex didn't, my baby's father, he didn't have everything, but I stayed home when I was pregnant. He was like, look at when you get pregnant, you're staying home and we're gonna make sure that you're good, right?
Mhm.
And that didn't take millions of dollars. That just took intention. That just took like
Exactly.
a stand up patient and saying like, hey, and I know so many men who are just regular Joes that their wives stay at home and they make sure that their wives are good. It's just literally maybe they work or maybe they work together, whatever the time is for
Mhm.
you. But attention, right?
Mhm.
If he sees you as a come up and you're the one who's the educated, making your way through the world and da da da, and he sees you as a come up, then that's a lot different than someone who's a noble man that's like, hey, I love the fact that you're a independent woman, that you're driving, you have drive, you have ambition, you have goals, right?
Mhm.
Let me coincide and coexist with you, not take from you, right?
Exactly. Mhm.
If we want to be at this level in life, right? We're starting here. We can always grow and develop, but at the end of the day, you don't want to be with somebody who's at you as a stepping stone, right?
Yeah.
Or
Right.
they're not
Right.
allowing you. You're beautiful, you're educated, you have yourself stuff together. And of course, like if a guy from IT comes to you, or a regular, smegular guy who's making, 350 a year, 250 a year, whatever, right?
Mhm.
And he's like, hey, you know, I think you're beautiful, right? I think you're amazing. And he's seeing you for you, and he's not seeing you in the light that's gonna kind of like hit his ego or not allow him to be whatever, right? Because men go through
Mhm.
their whole things. What I'm saying is that when a man looks at you, he sees beauty, he sees educated, he sees grace, right? And you want a man that's going to appreciate that. His job title doesn't matter, right?
Exactly.
So
Bottom line.
no matter what the hell he's doing, right? It doesn't matter. He's going to be like, you know what? My girl's doing a podcast. She has her business. Put into that. I want to help her grow that. It doesn't take multi-millions to make that decision. You know
That's
what I
true.
mean? It
Mhm.
isn't. I know some men that work alongside their wives, building shops, building bakeries, building whatever, and they may not be, this high value sticker on it. Like, okay, they're not like, oh, because again, like, how do you contest someone's value? Just always blows my mind how they put those labels on there. But it's literally like, if that man sees you and he loves you and he
Mhm.
wants to build with you from a space where you guys are both, he's striving, you're striving, not you trying to like pull him up by his bootstraps. It's
Right.
literally that's the kind of love that a lot of people wish for,
Mhm.
is like somebody who can see you, you see him, you guys have goals, you guys have intention, you guys are actually moving through your relationship in that way. And like you
Mhm.
said, it comes down to that mindset. It comes down to being able to say, like, yeah, okay, he might make 100 grand a year, he might make 200 grand a year, whatever, right? But
Mhm.
at the same time, his character for his love for me, he's willing to go be above and beyond most of what most men would actually do. So that's what we have to look at, right? Like,
Mhm.
and in character, like drive. If that person, again, 50-year-old, 40-year-old rapper who's been on the rapping career for a while, and that's a totally different kind of guy, right? That's his only
Yeah.
job. He's not trying to do anything but become, like that could be a problem. But a man that's like literally growing and like going for it, I think is so attractive. And to
Mhm.
see where they go with it and being able to grow something for themselves with a really strong, noble woman beside them is like, that's everything, right?
Yeah.
That's everything. And I
Mhm.
think every woman deserves that. I think every man deserves that as well, as like somebody who's going to love and take them to the next level and do it together and grow together, but not like in a stance of like, I'm going to step on you to get to this point, and then I'm going to go marry somebody else in like tax
Right.
bracket, or like I'm going to get like go through their midlife crisis, and they're like, oh my god, I'm getting old, and then like, let's go date a bunch of 20-year-olds, and I'm like,
Yeah.
you know, if I see a man who's in his 50s dating a 25 and under, I'm like, oh, that's control mechanisms for sure.
For
That's not
sure.
because
Yeah.
I talk to my 20-year-old kids and I'm like, I have no idea what's going on in that world. I can imagine dating somebody that's in that, like 20. Like, what are we talking about? Like I'm a Y2K girl. I grew up during
Yeah.
Backstreet Boys and all that stuff. So all that stuff is coming back hilarious. But like some of the slang and the thing, I'm like, how do you sit with a 20? Like, how do you have a conversation with a 20-year-old? Like, no. So
Exactly.
again, looking at their character, looking at everything, asking the right questions, let them talk about them. Men love to talk about themselves. Ask them all the questions and then
Mhm.
start from there. Right. But yeah, like you said, he doesn't have to be a multimillionaire. I know a ton of amazing men who are, like I said, grind every day. They do what they're supposed to. They go home. They take care of their families. Whatever. It doesn't always have to be like this. I got to have a bag every 5 minutes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't, yeah, like whatever. Like, and literally, if he's a good man and he understands value, okay, and he understands, like, especially if he is in the multi millions and is a money man, he's not gonna
Mhm.
let you put asset money into things that don't have. It's not an asset. Like, my man is 100% ROI. He's like, what's the return on investment on this? I'm like, girl math, or like,
Right.
I'm
Like
like,
real
and it's not,
math or
yeah, like, what do you mean? Because that's what he thinks of. A money man is going to keep the money in the house. He's not going to, and yeah, sure, if you want to go spend money on $5,000 bags every day, and that's what you, again, you have to, you don't remember like what kind of man is providing that, right? When you
yes.
see these girls running around, and I love it. I pray that they're all safe and they're in thriving relationships, but we all know the truth. It's probably not that, right? She's
Yeah.
probably sacrificed her time, her effort, her beauty, her body, whatever it is, to be able to have that lifestyle. And It looks good on Instagram.
Yeah, beautiful.
You're not there when, I bought you a bag, so what are you gonna do for me? Because
Yeah.
a lot of men are transactional. They are. Um, and that's the reason why they built wealth. I tell women all the time, like, if we weren't here, they wouldn't be buying Ferraris and multi-million dollar mansions and beautiful, because they do it all for us.
Mhm.
So at the end of the day, you know what I mean? Like, they wouldn't be doing
Yes.
that. So it's really important to understand our power as women, and to understand that we can have the relationship that we desire by our own design. And it
Mhm.
all starts here, right? Like, I would have never thought I would be living without my partner. I would be like, girl, I was way too insecure back then. But now I'm like, okay, it's been 5 days. You're gonna go home.
Yeah, and that was one thing. I'm like, so do you think that it's specifically this relationship with him and how he makes you feel that gives you that security? Or did you always kind of have that kind of free spirit or secure attachment style?
I've always been I in my past relationships, I was very possessive. I was a
Mhm.
very jealous girl.
Mhm.
I was very jealous. But I realized that my jealousy was from a space of feeling inadequate,
Okay.
right? Years of being in the club, you're always compared to the next girl. You're always having to stay on the forefront. You're always having to be the best looking, the best trending, the best look, the blah, 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 blah. So I was constantly seeing that in, like, the real world. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm comparing myself to a woman who is probably not even in competition with me. Like, we're
Yeah.
both signed up for competition, and that we're both. So I had to take that back a little bit. And then I also realized that cheating was a choice,
Mhm.
right? And a lot of women don't want to admit that. Like, your man did choose that, right? So at the end of the day, yeah, there's a woman involved, but at the same time, like, he made that decision to take it that far. So why
That's
am I jealous when that was a decision he made out of his own inadequacy and his insecurities? Because most men that cheat are insecure. It's not because they want something else. They want somebody to make them feel good. They want somebody to listen to their stories and laugh at their terrible jokes. You know what I mean? That's what they did as a dancer. They want somebody to be like, "Oh, you're so cute." Like, you know what I mean? It's all an
yeah.
ego thing. So when we understand it, right, we understand that it's like, oh, I just was with a bunch of. It's not the fact that I wasn't good enough and he cheated on me. It's the fact that he was insecure and had a really bad moment with his ego, and he
Mhm.
decided to make a decision, right? And when I understood that, I stopped becoming competitive with women. I started to understand women for who they were, and, like, it really opened up a lot. And I would say too, on the other side of that, it is how he treats me. It is
Mhm.
how he is so available. Like, I mean, I could literally. I remember I was on a tangent. I do weird stuff. I'm just like, oh, I'm gonna go do this and see how it goes. So when I first moved to Vegas, I decided to just, like, go into the world of club promotion, because I was like, I'm really good at this. I just want something to do, right? And
Yeah.
he's like, okay. And I remember being on, like, the corner of Las Vegas Boulevard and on my way to Venetian, and I was like, oh my gosh, I really want some tacos. And I happened to be on the phone with him, and he's like, where are you? And I'm like, I'm on this corner over here. I'm over getting ready to go to Venetian. He's like, okay, well, when you get to Venetian, just let me know and I'll order those for you. I'll get you tacos. And I'm like, thank you. Or
Uh-huh.
if I'm like, God, there's just so many scenarios. Or if I'm having a really bad emotional day, right? I'm like, oh
Mhm.
my God, I just need a hug. I'm feeling so emotional today. Oh my God, it's not. Literally, he will either drive 5 hours, or he will get on a plane, and he will literally surprise me, and he'll be at the door and he'll be like, I didn't want anything from you. I just want to give you a hug. You said you needed a hug. I'm here to
Wow.
give you a hug. I know. So sweet.
Yeah.
So, like,
Okay.
he
Yeah.
knows my birthday is like a hard my birthday's always been really hard for me since I was 16. So
Mhm.
every year he makes a huge deal out of my birthday, because he
Mhm.
knows it's a hard space for me. And so he'll be like, every day I'm gonna send you flowers and just remind you that you're loved. Or with my kids, with my boys, he's like so on spot for them, and he's just loves them. We didn't have to figure it out as a stepfather, or like, those
Yeah.
kids. He's like, those are my kids, you know,
Mhm.
and
Wow.
those kinds of things. Or like when he sits down and he says, okay, Pete, you're going to start a business. Let me help you. Let me help you do
Mhm.
this. Or things I didn't know, because he knows so much more when it comes to finances. I wasn't raised that way, so I didn't know a lot.
Yes.
And when it came to, like, the business stuff, and I'm like, hey, what does this mean? Or like, how do I file my taxes for business, or how to, he's like, okay, cool, let's do this. Let me show you how to do this. Or marketing, what is the new one? Market, he taught me about like money market accounts, and
Okay.
he teaches me about crypto. He's like, he teaches me about all those things. He's like, because again, if I love you enough, I want you to know a lot. And
Right.
most men that are in manipulation tactics, they won't tell you anything. Financial domination is a huge thing. Financial abuse of women is a huge thing. They don't tell you how to get better. They
Yeah.
just, of course, they'll take spa days and stuff, but financially responsible for yourself, they don't want you to know that. And so, this is the way that he treats me. It is the way that he continuously, even when we were early in a relationship, I was very, very sabotaging. I was like, oh God, this is love. I don't want it. It's too much.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what this is. I didn't know what it was,
Yeah.
he just would be like, hey, why did you stay? I used to tell him, like, because I literally said things to him like, can you please go away? Or I remember when we first started dating, I was like, oh yeah, this is too much for me. Like, can you please go away? And he used to look at me and he'd be like, no, I'm not going
Okay.
anywhere. He's like, you can choose. You can totally choose if you don't ever want to talk to me ever again. He's like, but I'm not going anywhere. I know that you're
Mhm.
fighting me. I don't know what love is, but I'm going to continue to show you that.
Oh, wow.
And he always, to my core of my being, that man is not going anywhere.
Yeah, yeah. And that gives you
Full of
security. That's
myself.
true security.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't, it's not because I'm full of myself or I think whatever. It's literally because the way he invests in me, the way that he's invested in my children, the way that he's um always like let me, I'm the first one, he will sacrifice himself. He'll throw himself on the train tracks if it came to me,
Mhm.
I know that 100%. And I feel that every day. Like, I don't have a question about like if there's something that I need or whatever. It could be so minimal. I was driving down the street one time and this man does not know anything about Meg the Stallion. Nothing, nothing at all. At all. And this is I have my little playlist that I play when my kids are not in the car and it's ratchet.
Yeah.
But so Meg the Stallion and Gorilla were coming into town. And I'm literally just driving down the street and I'm like, oh my gosh, how did I miss that? Oh my God, I cannot believe that they're gonna be in town tonight. I'm like so hurt. Like, I did not see this concert ticket. And he's like, let me see. He's like, which concert is it? And I'm like, it's Meg the Stallion. He's like, oh, we got tickets. And I'm like, how did you get tickets? He's like, I just bought them right now. And
Oh,
I'm like,
wow.
I don't know anything about Meg the Stallion. You're gonna come with me? And I'm thinking like, oh my God, he's so different. He's like Allison and Garth Brooks and Deftones and Pearl Jam and all that stuff. So I literally am like, okay, you're gonna come with me? He's like, yeah. And I'm like, okay. So we get dressed and we go. And I'm just laughing because like of all the outfits and everything. And he's just kind of looking around and he's like, wow, he loves black women. I know that. Like, I hope so. And I'm like, I don't even care. I'm like, yes, babe, that's a beautiful black woman. Because he came from a very white populated place where he didn't actually get to talk to one till he went to college.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, he didn't know he went to college in Louisiana and he was like, oh man, black women. He's like, my heart melted.
Yeah.
I was like, I bet it looking around and seeing all these outfits. And I'm like, oh crap. And then he literally is like, we're getting ready to go to the general admission and he grabs my hand and he's like, no, I got a front row. Like, we're going front row. We're going to go see Meg the Stallion.
Oh,
Like,
wow.
okay.
Yeah.
And I'm like, he just like loves to surprise me. That's his favorite thing is he loves to see my face. I'm like, we got to take, I'm like, oh my God, I'm like freaking out. And he danced the whole time. He didn't know a single song. It was so funny. Like, you just to see like this beautiful black women on stage. He was just like so like, oh my God. But just to see that he would do that for me and take his
Yeah.
like he's a busy man and take his whole to be able to come to a concert. He doesn't know one song. There's all these kids and there's all this twerking and there's all this stuff going on. And he's just like, and it was so cute. Like, I had him on my story. He's like, yeah, I guess it's a hot girl summer.
Yeah.
And so now to this day, he still referenced Meg the Stallion. It's hilarious. But like again, when you have one who is willing to take that extra step, not just
Mhm.
because they bought you something that it was literally like, oh my gosh, like if I think it into existence, like this man literally hears my thoughts. Like, he literally is like, oh, by the way, like I ordered groceries for you this morning because I knew tomorrow would be a big day for you. And I'm like,
Yeah.
damn, you
Yeah,
know?
he, like, anticipates your needs and things
Yeah,
like that, it sounds like. Yeah.
And that's what I think women miss out on is they don't understand, like, when you do love yourself and you are yourself, then people get the opportunity to love you for your authenticity and who you truly
Mhm.
are and not just what you should be. And then they get to learn you, and it's the most beautiful thing in the world. Like I love it. He knows I'm a flower head. He sends me flowers. I've been getting flowers like every week for I don't even know how long. Honestly,
Really?
there was a time I was getting them every day, and I had my house, and I was like, "Babe, we are really getting full here with vases and flowers." And so he reduced it. But for my birthday, it was like every day. I was like, "Oh my gosh, all these dead flowers everywhere!" But I love flowers. I love floral. I love pinks. I love anything about being a girl. And he's like, okay, we'll go and do that. Or hey, when I get into town, I'll go send you to the spa and I'll take the kids, because I know you've been doing all this stuff with the kids and I homeschool full time. And so all that. He's like, I know you've
Oh,
been homeschooling
wow.
and doing all this. So go and yeah, because again, if he's meeting me there, right, of course I want to raise your children in the best way. Of
Mhm.
course I want the education for the kids to be the best. Of course I want to do my motherly stuff. I love being a mom. I do. I love being a mom of my kids. And I get the opportunity and space to do it, because he's like, all I want is my kids to have a good mom, and all I want is for you to be happy, and all I want is for us to have a good connection. Those are the things of like the staples of our relationships. And when that's off, everything else is off. So he's like,
Yeah.
okay, if Portia needs that for spa day, we're gonna give it to her so she doesn't lose her mind. And it's not because he can't, it's because it's literally because he sees me. He sees when I'm overwhelmed. He sees when I'm having, especially business. Oh my God. So there's been so many times I'm like, I can't do this anymore. And he's like, Portia,
Yeah.
you are already
Yeah.
a success. Mind you, yeah. He'll be like, let me remind you of what you've been able to do in the last 5 years. And I'll be like, thank you. I needed that. Um, yeah, and that comes from knowing myself. But there's been definitely been times where I've had to be like, I don't know.
Yeah.
We might have to sit on this for a second because he's had to learn me. I've had to learn him. We come from very different backgrounds. Like I said, he's very traditional, came from Utah. I came from California with a single mom. He had two parents. Where
Mhm.
he's white, he's very Nordic. He's Nordic white. And I come from the hood, my family.
Yeah.
I remember the first time taking him to my family's my grandma, and he's like, yeah, I'm like, "Yeah, you're safe, you're okay." you know, and we've had to be like, well, when he has this tone, I'm like, are you being disrespectful? Because I'm taking it as disrespect because I'm not.
Yeah.
And he's like, no, it's this way. So learning each other again has been the biggest thing. But I don't think I would ever get him to understand who I am and learn me if I didn't know and learn myself. Because how can
Yes.
you give somebody the map to love you and you don't you
You
can't
don't
there's
know.
no GPS. If you don't know
Exactly.
how they're supposed to know, and then you're like sitting there crying on Mother's Day that you didn't get a gift, and you're like, I don't even know even what you even like. And so I think it's an important thing. And again, when you look at their character and their desire, and that comes from again you holding yourself. A lot of women don't understand. The more you hold yourself, the more that man is going to come. Right? He's going to
Mhm.
follow suit. When you're like trying to chase him, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
Right? Because number
Yeah.
one, he's going to be repelled by that, right? And if he is in love with the idea of you putting him on a pedestal, you probably want to run right now.
Yeah.
Run immediately. Get out the door fast. But I think like when it comes down to it, he also will say, I actually had some questions I asked him before this podcast, and I was like, that's interesting. But that again, I keep him at a space where he knows that I love him and that he
Mhm.
has me in that way, but he also knows I will choose myself. And so he's like,
Yes.
I do everything I can, sure you don't have to make that choice. And I say, okay, good.
Mhm.
Because again,
That
if I'm always just like, "Sure, whatever you want to do, honey, like you want to move and you want to have all your dreams, let me feel your dreams, let me do everything for you." Like again, where are you in that? You know,
yes. Mhm.
you in that. And if you're living for them, you're not really living for you, or you're not living for us as a unit. And it becomes very one-sided, or it becomes very like, what am I even doing here?
Yeah.
Right?
And that's where
So,
resentment comes in at because you're
oh yeah,
like, you're just
yeah,
so angry and upset. You don't know yourself. You're just this wife and this mom. You don't have
yeah,
any of your own things going on. So you're just
yeah.
angry.
Yeah, you're numb. You're numb and robotic, and that's why I would say so many moms, unfortunately, they don't really, number one, they don't realize that they're single mothers, even though they're married.
Yeah.
They're not getting the support. They're just, their husbands are just paying for things. I pay the
Yeah.
bills, so you take care of the. There's no emotional connection, no like any of that, right? And
Yeah.
then two, a lot of women, they tend to like have to have an identity around being a wife and being a mother, and they don't know anything else. So if you're one of those
Yeah.
women, like go find what ticks and talks for you, because that's important. You can't just sit there. I mean, antidepressants are huge amongst women, very big amongst women. And it's because we're shells of ourselves,
Yeah.
you know? Like I absolutely love my kids, but I am more than a mother.
Yes.
Okay?
Yeah,
If mom
exactly.
needs a take a break. I'm gonna do whatever, call support, drop her off, whatever I gotta do with kids, do what I gotta do in order to fulfill that need, right? Of myself. Sometimes it's not like he's like, what do you want for Mother's Day? I was like, I literally want no kids and just like stare at the like hole in the wall.
Yeah.
You know? Like, hey, not nobody. I don't want anybody asking me questions, anybody needing me. And he's like, okay, I get that. But again, some people be like, oh my God, you're a mother. You shouldn't feel that way. You should want to be with your kids. And it's like, yeah, I'm with them and I love them. But I have friends, I have a life, I have
Right.
things I go on without them. Like there's things I do without them and I love them, but it's not my whole identity. Just like my husband is not my identity, right?
Mhm.
Like, yes, he's a great man. He had his own, we do our things together. At the same time, I'm my own person, right?
Mhm.
He doesn't
Mhm.
know Meg the Stallion. I love Meg the Stallion. He loves Alice in Chains. I know one song.
Yeah.
You know, he's very, he loves to hunt and go be out in the outdoor stuff. I'm outdoorsy to a very minimum, right? Like I'm like, okay, that was fun playing in some dirt. I think I'm gonna go inside now,
Yeah.
Yeah, like he's like building walls with rocks and like catching bugs and lizards, and I'm like,
Oh Lord, yeah.
so so he knows I'm not into that stuff, so he's like not gonna ask me to come in, it's not gonna be like, well, she doesn't ever like to do what I like to do. It's like not anything like that. It's just again, when you know yourself and they can respect that, right? They put
Mhm.
you in a different level than other women, because a lot of women can't say, oh, they'd be like, I knew a girl who went to Home Depot for her anniversary date. And I said, honey, that's not what you really wanted. She goes, yeah, but it made him happy. But
Really?
again, commitment, right? It's a silent, I say it's a silent relationship killer. You're like, yeah, yeah, yeah. Then you're like, oh my God, I hate all of this.
Yeah.
Right? Because I know you wanted at Home Depot for your anniversary. Like, but you
Yeah.
didn't,
And that's
you
one
know?
thing I noticed that, and this is my son is very young now, but this is one thing that I want to teach him when he gets into, dating and finding a partner. The yes girl, the girl who's very agreeable, it seems like a good idea at the time, but it's
Yes.
never a great long-term investment. It never is. And yeah, the girl who has, the self-esteem, the confidence, has her things going on, it may be a little resistance with her, but you can trust
Yeah.
that in the long term, she's there because she
Yep.
wants to be there. And it's more of an iron sharpens iron situation than just okay, yes, going with the flow and things like that. My thing with very masculine men, they need that balance. Sometimes
They
they,
do.
yeah, they're very
Yes.
strong, they're very direct, but
Yes.
you can't be a woman that's just going to be too agreeable with them. Like you're just watching them self-destruct. And you're like, okay, yeah, yeah. Like clearly what you're doing is
Yeah.
destructive. Like this isn't going to end well. I could see that. But because you don't want to cause any resistance or anything, you're just going with it. And
Yes. Yes. Yes.
yeah, I'm like, I don't know. It seems like a good
There you go.
idea starting off, but in the long term, the yes girl,
Hmm.
she ends up having so much resentment and it doesn't work anyways. So I don't know. That's one thing I always want to teach my son. Like, just be with the girl who you actually want to be with. Like, even if it's you know, a little resistance, just in the long term, that's an actual good investment. But the girl who's just very agreeable and anything you say, okay, 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 she's just leading you to destruction.
Yeah. Right. And 100%. And the thing is like a man that's a CEO, he's ambitious, he's growing, he's doing things. He's going to need someone that is going to be his strength and his resilience. And even if you don't agree, and like you said, if you don't, like, let's invest in $5 million into this, right? And it may not be the best investment. You can't just be like, yeah, I trust my husband. There's time, like, let's really look at this. And I think that's one thing that my man really appreciates, because he was in a marriage with somebody who always said yes.
Mhm.
He was never, because he was the boss of everything and he constantly had to make decisions. It was
Mhm.
like being able to say, I actually don't agree with that, or I actually don't think that that is going to work for us here, or whatever. Like, let's talk about it, let's converse. Like, he never had that back and forth. And so it kind of made him feel much better in our relationship, to be able to have me have some choices, or to be able to just give him some insight or some feedback
Mhm.
on things. And he also loves, he always says too, he says, Portia has a really beautiful heart, but her fierceness and her ability to have boundaries and standards is just as inspiring. And it
Oh,
is, because, like, that's not gonna work for me. Or I'm like, actually, it's so funny, because when we buy houses or we buy cars or anything, I'm like, no, actually, I don't. You might like it because it's, you're practical Patrick over here, but this is not. He's so simple. He's like the total opposite. Like I said, I like all the, like, stuff and like glitz and glam. He's like, just give me like a chorus light and a fishing pole. Like this.
yeah.
He'll be happy for the rest of the pole and of course, like. But for me, it's like, you know, him being able to say, or him being able to understand when I'm like, no, this isn't working for me, and him actually appreciate that I'm standing up for myself, is
Yes.
like, that's actually what I'm very attracted to me. It's not just like a doormat, because there's certain men, especially like you just said, that are just, you can't be a doormat with. It's a definite distraction, or a definite path to destruction. Like I
Yes.
said, the men that they need you to hold that space for them, and keep them accountable to being a
Mhm.
man, right? Like, if you say you promised me something, right? And if you say that we're going to do something, or we have plans, or this is what we're doing to actively work together, and then you go somewhere else with that, I have every right to be like, that's not what was in the goal, or that wasn't the plan, or you
Right.
promised me, right? Just like I hold my promises, you have to hold your promise. And so there's a lot of women
Mhm.
who just be like, oh, whatever he wants, whatever, and quite frankly, men aren't attracted to that. They're not. They might say they are, but they're not.
They're
And if they do,
not.
they're being manipulative. They want to
Exactly.
they can dictate. They don't want a woman.
And it's very telling. Like, okay, so I would say, like, in my 20s, I've had like situations where, like, I'm with a guy and it's very obvious we're very compatible. We like each other so much. But when it came to it, like, we weren't together. And they end up marrying someone else. And I remember I used to feel so bad, like, man, if I wasn't so fiery, or it's because of this, it's because of this. But I will say, and this is what I love about my 30s, because like this season that I'm in, like everything's coming full circle. Like everything is starting to make sense.
Girl.
But I will say this, they have come back around. First of all, they're divorced and they came back around and just like expressed their appreciation for what we shared and things like that. And I'm like, wow, so it wasn't me or my fierceness or how fire I am. It's just that at that time, that's just what they could afford to do. Like that was the least resistance to them. But now that they're getting a little
Yeah.
wiser, whichever the case, they're seeing like, maybe there were better options. And I mean, that,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yes. And it's so true. I am very fierce. I am very fiery. I don't believe in, like, my man's the head of the household. I just have to be obedient. No, that doesn't that doesn't work.
Yeah.
And because of it, it has molded him and made him stand up. He told me, like, literally, you make me be a man. Like, you
Wow.
hold me to that. You know what I mean? And I've learned so much from you. I actually did a post of everything. I asked him, what have you learned from me being in love with me? And he wrote a whole thing and I shared it. But, like, those kind of men, like you said, there's a certain kind of woman for them. And
Mhm.
a man who really, really, really wants to meet you in your fierceness is going to be attracted and inspired by it. And I'm not
Yeah.
saying like you should be man out and being crazy. What I'm saying is it's like a woman, like, think of like a queen, right? Like, you think back in the
Mhm.
day, the queen had to have, she had to know when to move and to even fight wars at times. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like
Mhm.
the queen has to get out there and fight with the rest of us. And so at the end of the day, we have to remember that, because
Yeah.
yes, we can be soft, but soft comes in many flavors, as I like to say, and so does love. I love you enough to tell you the truth. I
Yes.
love you to tell you when it's not good, right? Or when I don't believe in that. And we have such opposite beliefs sometimes. It's like, whoa, hold on, I don't really believe in that. But that doesn't mean at the end of the night that we're not together and that we literally can't see each other's side. I will literally disagree with a whole bunch of things to say. And
Mhm.
values and morals are different. But like if it's like, you know, he doesn't believe that there's a lot of things that we're different in. But at the end of the day, it's like if I didn't stake my claim in that, it wouldn't give him the opportunity to shift his perspective or at least to hear a different perspective because we're not,
Yes.
or even with me, we're not all right. Right. So when he can say,
Mhm.
um, look at this for me. What do you think about this? He actually
Mhm.
trusts my intuition and my advice because he knows that I'm not say whatever you want, honey. Like, it's like, Portia's actually going to give me the truth, whether I want to hear it or not. And that's
Right.
definitely been something that he's learned used to because he's like so used to whatever you say, honey. But he's like, the reason why like I really love you is because you're like, that's actually not it's not really like that.
Yeah,
Like
that's not gonna work.
I had like a couple of times. Yeah, like that might work for you, but doesn't work for me, or like I again hold myself to my own standards, right?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
if I want this kind of man and I want to be in a relationship with this kind of man, I still have to hold myself in accountability and standards too. Meaning there is a certain way that I'm going to show up. There is a certain way, and I have to be able to hold myself to the to the woman that I want to be and aspiring to be, if that makes sense. Like
Mhm.
I'm not gonna. He's not going to sit back and allow me to sabotage, and I'm not going to sit back and allow him to sabotage. So we both hold ourselves in an accountable space in the best way. And sometimes it's raw and it's a little like, but it's like there's been so many times I'm like, I'm not going to tell him that. I'm not going to tell him, and I can't hold it because it just comes out. And he's like, oh my god, thank God that you said something to me because I would have never even known that you felt this way. And the last thing I'm trying to do is offend you in this way.
Right.
So let's talk about it. And so that's where real communication can happen. That's where real bonding can thrive when you're just like, oh, whatever you said here, you know. Nobody likes
Mhm.
a doormat, and it takes a very strong man to love a fierce woman. But when you see a fierce woman and a strong man together, they are unstoppable because she
Unstoppable.
has
Yes.
Michelle Obama, right? She's not just like, oh yeah, whatever you want. Like she's like, hold on a minute, let me check the field for my husband here, or let me
Yeah.
look at things, or let me for what I believe in. And me being such a dreamer and him being such a logical person, it helps him dream
Mhm.
a little bit more. Or when I'm like, you don't have to like again, the law of attraction, being able to be the metaphysics of things, right? I'm like totally into like the universal laws and all that stuff. And so when I'm able to repeat that stuff back to him or point that out to him, he's like, "Oh, thank you for that." Because like I literally needed to hear that so that I can understand what I'm experiencing. Like, one of my favorite
Yes.
things is one of my favorite laws is cause and effect. Like what we put out is what we receive, right? So above, so below. And so because of that, it's helped him be a better person. Because sometimes, men get in their godlike energy and it's helped him be a better person because he's like, oh yeah, I remembered what you told me this morning about cause and effect. Or I love that you're so deep because he's very he's like, oh my God, Portia could go on for hours. And I'm like, yeah, I know. Like I love that deepness about you, or that you will like if I say that I'm going to do something and I'm pushing whether it's a goal for us or it's a goal for my business, like you're pushing me to make sure that I am holding my own self to my own accountability. And I feel like that can only come from a fierce lover. That can only come from a fierce
Mhm.
woman. I am not tried wife Susie homemaker. Like that is not
Yeah.
me. No. Um, so being able to find someone who literally appreciates you being a strong woman, but
Yeah.
doesn't force you to be strong. Like I talked about that
Mhm.
the other day. Like I've been at war my whole life. Having a man that says, I see that and I'm going to provide you peace instead of
Oh,
providing you more war is a big
yeah.
thing, right? So you have to be able to, I have to call him out sometimes when he's self sabotaging, or I have to call him out when he's not holding his own truth. And he does the same for me. My kids do the same for me. We all do it for each other. But there's just something about that kind of relationship where you can be like, no, we need you to stand up a little bit. I know I see the power in you, right? Or
Yeah.
no, or like that's probably not the way that I was going with this, but let's see what you're talking about. Let's have a perspective conversation around it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it takes a fierce man to love a fierce woman, but trust and believe, like those are the marriages that last. Those are the marriages that hold a very deep bond and that have a lot of trust because he knows his woman is not going to just go for anything. She's also
Yeah.
not going to be attracted to anything or step outside of the relationship in that way because they have this like understanding and like they stand and hold true to each other's values and morals and remind each other when they're not when they're not
Doing
falling in
that.
those lines or you agree. Like it's really beautiful to like I could never not be a fiery like I'm all fire. Like my whole system, I don't know if
Yeah.
you guys just
That's something I'm
like
like,
that,
I'm
you
sorry.
know?
I literally
Like,
cannot be anything else. Like, it's just in me.
no,
Even when I try to like
no, I
tone
don't
it
know.
down a little bit, I don't know.
And because I'm such a passionate speaker and I love and I have like that's why I love to send voice notes because if I send text sometimes people are like, oh, that sounds kind of harsh. I'm like, no, I'm not trying
Yeah.
to be harsh. I'm just a passionate speaker. Very direct, I'm a very direct speaker. And so like being able to have somebody that's like, oh, okay, that she's not being that way or
Yeah.
allowing like being able to be like, I appreciate that about her. Like you're gonna find someone, especially women, don't yeah, obviously work on yourself for the, greater attributes. But at the end of the day, like if he doesn't love you for who you are authentically, that is not your man.
Right.
You're gonna find somebody who's gonna be like, damn, her fiery attitude is exactly what I need in my life. Or I know that she's gonna protect my children one day, she's gonna protect my business one day. Like that's the woman that I know who, I might not always agree with her tactics, but I know 100% that she's going to be in the truth, right? And fierce women, that's one thing I feel like is so sad to think that women think because they are, fierce or they do have a lot of fire or they are very liberated women that they have to like settle or they can't ever find someone for themselves. But I'm like very fiery, very fierce, very liberated. Some things he just like, don't really understand that, but okay, you know, you know,
Yeah.
and it's like, we agree to disagree. I mean, for a long time, excuse me, I was in the yoni field and I did a lot of like work with yonis and a lot of liberation for women and we did a lot of like nude retreats and people like nude retreats. I don't really understand that, but okay, it's like okay, that's a you thing, right? And able to like educate him in a space that's like not him his ego trying to take over and take control. It's like, oh, this is my woman, this is what she's into, so let me just like try to enhance that and try to understand instead of just trying to like push her out. So you're going to meet somebody that really loves you for you and you want somebody that loves you for you that doesn't see you as a fiery woman and is like, how do I put water on this? Like
Yeah.
be a little bit more confined or a little bit more modest or whatever it is, and it's like, no, there's plenty of men who look at you and be like, oh man, that fiery stuff turns me on. I want that. Give me the fiery, spicy one. Okay.
I'm going to wrap it up. I want to ask one last question. So, Portia, when you made this membership, when you decided to go on this journey of like worthy women and really get into women's hearts and just allow them to live their best lives, who was your idea member? Like, what woman did you have in mind?
Ooh, that's a good question. The woman who literally has given her heart and soul and body to a relationship, and she hasn't quite found her way back because she's still trying to figure out who she is. Um, it's the woman who literally is in the space for love, but she doesn't want any kind of love, and she's kind of a little terrified to put herself out there because she's like, my last relationship, or I haven't quite gotten my spark back, right?
Yeah.
It's really truly a woman who is ready for more in love. I feel like so many women are like, oh, well, yeah, he's a nice guy. So I'm like, yeah. And, yeah, that's enough to like say, I want to marry this man and have his children. It's really the woman who is really looking to want more in love and also to see herself as more in these relationships. Um, And so that's what I would say. If you're a woman who has been through so much in love, or just the last relationship didn't quite go the way that you desire, you find yourself giving too much and receiving too little, or just feels imbalanced all the time, or again, you keep meeting the same man in a different clothing,
Mhm.
it's time to start working on that word. Time to start looking deeper inside of what's going on inside, and then we can develop the other stuff. But for me, it really is a woman who's, just truly trying to find out why she keeps getting into the same cycles and patterns in her relationships, and is looking for more, is looking for a relationship that is truly beyond her desires and what she truly deserves,
Mhm.
that's what I would say.
Oh, that's beautiful. And there's a lot of women who are in that space now. I know that even yesterday, a woman, she had commented on a video I posted, and she was saying how she's in that space where it's like she's not really liking men, and she's kind of like in that isolation time. And I was like, that I think isolation is good. It could be good, but as long as you're using that time to like actually heal, it still keeps some hope and faith that like your perfect match is out there. So like like you said, what do I have to
Yeah.
do to stop attracting the same type of man? And that's so I think your work is
Yes.
great. I could tell that you truly have a heart for women, your passion that you have for women. I wish you all the best with everything and much success with the membership, and that you could just elevate the collective of women that's finding their self-worth and love. Where can everyone contact you? So if anyone was looking to join the membership or just stay in contact with you, where could they find you at?
You can find me on Instagram. Instagram's my main platform. I'm Portia, Porscha, my wonderful mother, underscore Newton, like or Cam Newton, Newton. Or you can find my website at theworthywomanacademy.com.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you so much. This was an absolute pleasure, and we'll talk soon. We'll be in touch.
Yes, for sure. Definitely. Definitely.
Okay, bye.